Listen to Desert Radio wherever you are in the world by streaming live on desertradio.fm. 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 Desert Radio.
Our reporter from the South, Ellen Alberts, interviewed the Tourism Minister, Pohamba Shifeta, who said the president earlier on indicated to him that doctors had said he has got 6 months to live, and only just a few days ago, Statehouse came out to say that President Hage Geingob had been diagnosed of cancer. And the question is, should the president have notified the public? Did he owe it to the public, or the presidency did they owe it to the public to let them know the status of the health of the president, and not to wait few weeks later there? Ambassador, good morning to you.
Good morning, Calvin.
Yes, I want to see if Frederico is ready for us. Good morning, Fred. All right, I'll just drop Fred right now, and then he can join us a little bit later there. Ambassador, the question now is that it has now become clear that people in the higher offices were aware that the president was sick, but the presidency only came this year, just a few weeks ago, to say the president had been diagnosed of cancer. We want to find out, what does this mean when it comes to transparency, especially around a public figure like the president? Does the presidency and the president owe it to the public to inform them, especially where there is a diagnosis of such a grave sickness as cancer, tuberculosis, HIV and AIDS, or all the other? Or should they wait that long before they can let the people know?
It's quite a tricky question, but maybe before I do address your question, let me also just add my voice to which I've already done on social media. And to express, I was quite shocked, and I think I want to extend my condolences and that of my family to the former First Lady and the children. Yes, to come to your question.
All right. Seems like we're having a problem there.
That
yes.
The president had was at the point of incapacitating him in fully executing his oaths and his obligations as the head of state.
Right.
I know that there is specific reference in our Constitution that if he's incapacitated in any form, then there's a whole process how he can somebody can take over as an acting president. In the American system is more clear, I think, that the cabinet must then, according to Section 25 of their Constitution,
right,
take a decision to say you cannot go on further, even if you want to, because national security depends on it.
That's right. Ambassador, Ambassador,
occupying a position of that nature.
Yes, Ambassador, can I just kindly ask you to hold on to that point respectfully? Frederico says he's ready for us. Can I just add him to this conversation, then we can proceed, Ambassador?
Okay, no, please, no problem.
All right, just bear with us there as we reach out, of course, to Frederico Links right here on Desert Radio, and we can also add him to this conversation right here. Of course, let's see if this can happen. Fred, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Gavin. How are you doing?
Doing very well. We are also with Ambassador Pius Dunaiski on the line there.
Okay, good morning, Ambassador.
Yes, good morning, Fred. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
So you are doing a good job. I'm following what you are saying in public.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's all right. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We appreciate this, really. We are talking about transparency. When should our leaders be transparent? Is there a strategy behind when certain announcements must be made? In light of the announcement of the diagnosis of President Hage Geingob, even his death there are certain people that are saying that we don't really trust that the president really died 4 minutes after midnight. He could have died hours before. And of course, Ambassador, you were making a point there. Frederico, you'll be coming in just after this. Ambassador, if you can proceed.
Yeah, the point I was making is that it is the duty in a country like the United States, for instance, cabinet, if they know of the seriousness of such a disease, which in this case is a dread disease, I think they can take their constitution and join them to take a decision to replace the president with the vice president. Ours is also clear in our constitution that we can do so. The point that I was making is that I don't know to what extent the pancreatic cancer, suffering from it, knowing 6 months before the time, and sometimes it lasts longer. They say if you, according to what I read in the news, and I think it was in the Namibian, is that if it goes longer than 6 months, maximum 8 months. So, and he opened up to very close people to him, according to news. So I agree somehow that the shock that came with this whole announcement, putting as a sudden death, I feel like there was not enough transparency in this whole announcement.
All right.
And it really threw us all in a deep, sad, dark cloud of shock and mourning, which I think is consuming the whole country. And I think this death will have a lot of outcomes and so on.
That's right.
Which we may not see at this moment. But the point I'm making is that I would have, he was the one president that preaches transparency.
Right.
Day and night, he had a formula, transparency plus something equals to confidence and trust. I would have really prepared the people of Namibia better for this.
That's right. Ambassador,
if
yes.
I was had that privilege.
That's right.
But I just cannot, I'm not a medical expert. I don't know to what extent pancreatic cancer do incapacitate it or do diminish your ability to execute what you have to do.
That's right.
And to honor your oath. So it's a little bit a gray area for me on that score. Maybe with that cancer, you can work until you die.
That's right. I'd like to...
yes. There's no problem.
Yes, I'd like to bring in Frederico Links there. Fred, we are now getting to know that people were aware, especially in the higher offices, that the president was sick. But the announcement only was made just a few weeks ago that the president, they found cancer cells. Yet all the while, they knew the president was sick. This has been the admission by the Prime Minister. And of course, this has been the admission and revelation also by the Tourism Minister, Poamba Shifeta. What do you make of the transparency around the health of the president, the time frames within which people were then allowed to know the exact state of the president?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I'm a bit skeptical of this claim that people knew. It might be that, a handful of people knew about this or were confided in about this. But, I mean, I'm getting the sense that outside of a handful of people, I mean, that very senior people within the ruling party knew, I'm very skeptical of this claim. That said, I mean, it just usually, I mean, our political landscape is one that has a lot of leaks on it. Let's be honest. And for something like this to be held such a close secret for so long, for 6 months, I mean, it just strikes me as an impossible feat. And so you have to think that, if people knew it was a very close and intimate inner circle that knew, and so we have to, the fact that this is, that I think that, these cabinet members now have to come out and actually say this, that they knew 6 months or how many months in advance. It's sort of telling as well. I mean, that they have to come out and say this. Because
right.
I think the speculation, the sense we're all getting is that, given what we know of, sort of the politics of the high-level politics of this country, something like this could not have been held secret for 6 months or a year. So, I mean, the very fact that they had to come out and say this also tells us something. On the transparency aspect, I think it's important, not just in, it's an important thing to be transparent because what we have to deal with as a country is a national security issue.
Right.
The country is leaderless. The president has fallen ill, and so this becomes not just a political thing; it becomes a national security issue, and it has to be dealt with in a way that engenders confidence and assurance. And I think the way this transpired, it reflects, I think, a general culture of a lack of transparency within the highest levels of government in Namibia.
All right, Fred, I would like to bring in Ambassador there. Ambassador, the president confided in his friend, Pohamba Shifeta, that the doctors had said he's got only 6 months to live. Do you think that the president should have rather confided in the Namibian people rather than just telling a few people around him? And do you think maybe there's a strategy behind that?
I listened very carefully to what Fred was saying, because this kind of revelations after the shock and this whole week of people, with this kind of outpouring of grief and confusion and sense of loss and all those kind of things. I think it can be because the SWAPO Constitution clearly indicates that there should be a new president of SWAPO be elected, who then will be the SWAPO candidate for the national elections in November. And it can, this kind of outpouring of grief and the political atmosphere can be exploited. It can be utilized in a certain direction to benefit certain politicians. I don't want to accuse anybody that he was not told. But in the absence and the death of the former president, nobody can verify. Is that so? Or do you want to tell people that how close you were, and then through that, gain some political points or making some political points, that you were their political son, and he could, even the deepest of secrets he could share with you, and things like that. So I was, it was an eyebrows lifter. I was, I could not believe that somebody could say such things.
That's right. Yes.
Another person's death.
Right. Ambassador, allow me to bring in...
There's no way to verify whether what the person says is true or not.
That's right. Allow me then to bring in Frederico there. Frederico, I don't know if you listened to the interview that we had with Poamba Shifeta, who said the president told me that, he has been given 6 months by the doctors. But then he said, I don't want to be buried at the Heroes Acre. And he says, I thought the president was joking, but he mentioned it several times that he would really write this in his will. He has actually set the cat amongst the pigeons here. How will the leadership deal with that request from the president? Do we need to be aware of the president's will so that we know whether we should be resting him at the Heroes Acre or at his plot?
Well, I mean, that is very much a political decision. I mean, I think, that's a decision that the ruling party will probably negotiate with the family. But I think very much they very much. I mean, there's a plot reserved for our presidents. There are plots reserved for them. So, I mean, I don't foresee that is an issue that will cause ructions unless people make a big issue of it. Apologies, I'm sitting in my car, so there's traffic going by. So I think the issue of the politics of this moment is something, just to latch onto what the ambassador said there at the end. The politics of this moment is something that, and sort of the falsehoods that were sort of starting to be spread immediately after the announcement, after it became clear what happened and so forth. And I think this is where, if we ask the question, should the presidency in a situation like this, should it be transparent about the health status of the president? And I think what happened was you had a lot of conspiracy theories, you had a lot of mis and disinformation flying around about, actually the president died in the US and they brought his body back and then came and made an announcement here. Or he died long ago, or some, these sorts of things were going around, and there were some, conspiracy theories that were also floating in there about, the political situation going forward and so on. So, I mean, this tells us something. There needs to be a better way in order to not have these sorts of occasions and to prepare society so that unnecessary suspicions and unnecessary speculation and so forth doesn't cloud a moment like this.
Right. Allow me to bring in.
It's necessary for there to be, even if we're not told given a complete picture.
Right.
But at least we're given enough to sort of prepare us as the public for when something is happening and it could be bad, and we need to steel ourselves going forward, and it could have an impact on our political landscape. So, right. I mean, this moment is instructive, and I hope we learn from this.
That's right. Is the first time that we deal with the death of a president, a sitting president for that matter, Fred, and of course I take your point there. We have to learn from this. Ambassador, we are coming to the close of our conversation there. Actually, you and I, Ambassador, were sharing information around the health of the president before we actually heard of the death of the president. The day before, actually, you were sharing with me information to the fact that there are sources that were saying the president was in ICU. Statehouse was quiet on that. Then hours after that, we began to see so much of speculation on social media. We were trying to verify whether this was correct or not. That was really the intention why you shared that information with me. And there was no qualification of that until later that the presidency came out to say, no, this is the situation. Then hours later, the president passes on. With that kind of ending of information, should we then trust that there was transparency and that there's credibility in the information that we have in terms of what time exactly did the president get into the ICU and when exactly did he die?
Oh, I like what Fred was saying. It's a very, very instructive moment. And we will have to sit down after all of that, all of this mourning and everything, and really decide the way forward is what the former president said. Transparency, transparency, transparency. That's absolutely important. I mean, the way how this thing has been handled as it appears now is almost like it calls up the ghost of the Soviet Union. Brezhnev was dead for about a week, and the public was not informed. It was only very important, powerful people up in the echelons that came together and sat down and first strategize precisely how will they break the story, who will get what. And once there was some kind of unity on the way forward, then only they inform the public. I don't think we as Namibia deserve this. We have a constitution that is a very modern constitution. And if that constitution doesn't hold us together, and if we don't regard the rule of law as absolutely important
right.
to take the country forward, then I think, then we are in trouble.
That's right, Ambassador. We only have
that's why I said,
yeah.
There's all these talkings which coming up now. It's really more confusing than anything.
That's right, Ambassador. Yes,
and it does not. It doesn't all go well for us.
That's right, Ambassador. 2 minutes to go there. Thank you for that point, Fred. Sophia Shaningwa this morning in the paper is saying that, well, let's not be unsympathetic, really, and begin to talk about succession when we are mourning now. Let's begin to talk about extraordinary Congress and things like that after we bury the president. What do you make of the voices that are already talking about succession?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lack of sensitivity to the moment. You know, what the society is going through, what's happening on our political landscape. This is all new to all of us. And for I mean, for me, it speaks to the state of internal politics in the ruling party that that these sorts of this sort of talk is coming up so quickly after the death of the president, and that the Secretary General has to come out and make a statement like this. I mean, it tells you something about the internal politics of within the party and how it is, and possibly also, I mean, the reason why this was handled the way it was because of how this is now played out, or how this is playing out.
Right.
That there were those, this was held pretty close because it was realized that there were those who would try to exploit this moment, and that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, that the internal, some are stoking the internal politics of the party on the back of this tragedy. So I mean, this is that speaks to what we can see going forward in terms of the jockeying for leadership within the ruling party and positions within the next administration. And I don't know if it puts a positive light on what's happening within the. I can't see that it's a positive, and that it resonates positively with the public. Especially the.
Listen to Desert Radio wherever you are in the world by streaming live on desertradio.fm. 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 Desert Radio.